Welcome to Not Your Typical Church Ladies, faith conversations for your real life. I'm Vicky, and each week I'm joined with my fellow workers in the vineyard, Anne and Karen, to break open the Sunday scriptures and talk about life and faith and everything in between. Join your not typical church ladies on this journey each week.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Not Your Typical Church Ladies. We are ready to go for Lent 2024. Diving in, everybody. This is our special Ash Wednesday episode. So we are hoping to get your Lent season started off right by taking a look at the readings for the Ash Wednesday masses, prayer services. No matter where you go to celebrate Ash Wednesday, any year, the readings will be the same. So hi, Karen. Hi, Vicky.
Hello.
Maybe before we start with Ash Wednesday, I just want to ask you guys, how are you feeling about Lent this year? Just in general. Let's take the temperature of the room.
I'm feeling pretty good about it this year. Like, I don't know, most years I get a little nervous. I mean, working in ministry and having it so close to Christmas, I like that turnaround. I thought like during Christmas, I was like, oh my gosh, now I got to turn into Lent, and it was overwhelming. But after the new year, I came back like super excited. So I'm ready to do the Lent thing.
That's the spirit.
See, Karen's bringing the energy because I started off being like, yes, Lent, new season, new like podcast season, yay. And then I started to look at the readings and I realized, all right, this is actually what Lent is. We're diving deep this time. So get your floaties on, everyone. We're going to the deep end during Lent this year.
It is. So we're in year B. So we have Mark, mostly Mark and some John. We'll get to that next episode though. Because the year B Lent readings they are not for the faint of heart. We are definitely going to be needing to buckle up and dive in. I know. The other funny thing about starting Lent this year is that Ash Wednesday is falling on Valentine's Day. So we were chatting with Father Rob. He's like, which are you going to celebrate, Valentine's Day or Ash Wednesday? And I was like, well, boss, I will be celebrating Ash Wednesday.
Yeah, I don't think we really
I'll be working all day long running multiple programs.
Right. I don't think we really have that choice this year. But even if not, I think it's cool having, and it was funny because the other day, Rob and I were talking and he mentioned that again. He was like, I'm really nervous about Ash Wednesday this year. And I was like, oh, can I do a little ash heart on everybody's forehead? And he's like, I don't think that would fly. And then yesterday I get a text from, I'm not going to say who, but a diocesan employee that
sent me good friends with all three of us.
Yes.
He knows who he is. And he's definitely watching.
And he sent a meme and it had Ash Wednesday falls on Valentine's Day. This is how ashes are going to be. And everyone had an ash heart. And I'm like, see, I think I could totally pull it off.
I think it fits in though, because we change what we say when we give ashes. Sometimes it's a little bit different, but one of the things is like return to God with your whole heart, right?
Yeah. And the other part too is half of them don't even look like crosses anyway. It just looks like a blob.
Don't you feel like when you're doing that, it takes you a couple to like really get into the groove?
Yeah.
I always feel bad when I don't give someone enough ashes, or when I give someone too many ashes and it's just like
it falls into their eyelashes.
Yeah. And you know what else? Because I'm so short, like a lot of times I can't, like people need to like bend down.
Oh, and this is a public service PSA, okay? If you have bangs, please lift them up for us.
Yes.
Or put them off to the side. I always get so embarrassed. Like I have to put my hand up and under the person's forehead to like lift their bangs. And it feels like I'm intruding on their space. So
slightly uncomfortable.
Just a little bit. But I mean, we do it. It works. It works. But
well, and it also reminded me of, I don't remember who it was. I heard this once about like scoping out the lines of the people giving ashes, like who's giving you a really big cross, who's giving, because when you're in line, you start watching the people come back, like, okay, what am I gonna look like when this is all over?
Yeah, yeah.
That's funny.
And it's funny, like I always laugh because I go to the later evening mass, and so I don't have my ashes until late at night. And I was like, oh, then I just go to bed, and then I
Yeah.
was like, do I wash it off? Do I? It's so maybe this year I'll. I mean, I'm obviously going to be at the 7 o'clock, but maybe I'll opt for an earlier one so I can,
On the 12:10, because I'm going to be leading that
Oh
one.
yeah. I'll actually Emma has a doctor's appointment, so I
Oh,
won't be able to do that one. But I can wear them, for the whole day instead of just a couple hours.
okay.
Side notes.
Yeah. So Ash Wednesday, those are our insider tips as people in the trenches on Ash Wednesday. Um, okay, but getting to the readings, what do you guys any thoughts on, well, let's just look at the first reading. This is from the book of Joel. Um, we joke every year that the first reading and the gospel contradict themselves because the first reading is like, when you fast, blow a trumpet and gather the people and let everybody know. And then in the gospel reading, it's like, Jesus is like, don't blow a trumpet, whatever you do. So, anything you want to say about the reading from Joel?
Well, we have heart in there, which is where that idea of one of the things we could possibly say when we do ashes, the idea of our hearts returning with our whole heart. And I do think, as much as maybe we don't blow trumpets and celebrate, I think, recognizing it as a day to be like, yes, I'm recommitting myself full-heartedly into this journey with Jesus to walk to Easter with him. And I think that part, maybe it's not like a big party, which, we can't eat chocolate on that day, so no real party, but the idea of like celebrating within ourselves that we are recommitting for ourselves to this. So yay to us for saying yes to this journey.
Yeah. You know, the heart and transformation kind of popped out at me in this reading. Like, even though we have that contradictory where it's like, yay, have this whole celebration of letting everyone know that you're going to be transformed, but no one can really see what's going on in you, but you can feel it and you know it. And so I think like just taking the first reading and Ash Wednesday in general to just reflect on how can we personally transform our hearts into, being, and he uses the words ambassadors. And we are ambassadors to Christ. We are called to be Christ-like. And by doing that, we have to look into our hearts and transform ourselves to be who God meant us to be. And I think taking that day to kind of start off your Lent helps with the rest of the weeks.
I think it's so interesting that you guys both gravitated to the idea of celebration because we don't typically associate that with Lent in general. And I think especially Ash Wednesday. And even in that reading, like there's talk later on about like um between the porch and the altar, let the priests weep. Like, but so we talk about like practicing Lent, but why not celebrate Lent? I know, Vicky, that's your word of the year this year, celebrate, right? So, yeah, what would it look like if we went into Lent with a lighter heart or with an open heart, with a whole heart? Not to say, especially knowing where the readings are going to take us this Lent, like it's going to be,
Heavy.
it's going to be heavy. It's going to be heavy, and we might be in tough times in our lives, personally, professionally, in our church, in the world. Things are bumpy. They're not going to be easy, but the fact that we're on the journey is something to celebrate. So I can get behind that.
I think it's important to, I mean, when we think about Lent, we think about it as, oh, I gotta fast.
Mhm.
Oh, I gotta pray. If we celebrate it like, hey, I gotta fast and I gotta pray and and I want to, changing that even want, got to want, and celebrating the fact that where we are now is where we're not going to be in 40 days.
Because
And
we're going to be on a journey of transformation.
yeah. And how many times have we said in our podcast over the years, I can't believe it's been years already, we're a Eucharistic people. Like, that's what we're called to do, is to be celebratory and live as Christ. So starting it off, yeah, and like you were saying, like starting it off with celebration of, hey, we're going to be completely different people in 40 days, and how amazing is that going to be, rather than, oh, can't have my steak on Fridays.
It was
Yeah,
funny you mentioned that I had a business coach once, and I still remember this to this day. He's like, you have to switch what you're saying to yourself from I have to I get to, I want to, I choose to. Because when you're making the choice to do it, it's empowering yourself to say that, like, no, this is me, as opposed to when, oh, I have to go do this, or I need to go do this. Really trying to turn it into something that, no, every day you get to say yes to your choice. So if you're doing it because you need to, or you want to, and you choose to do it because it'll get you to the next place.
Yeah, it seems like the word is wholehearted. I'm hearing this from you guys, when we're looking at this reading, and return to me with your whole heart. What does it mean to be wholehearted? There's actually a song I've been praying with. It's a For King and Country song. I think I've talked about this, like, for the last couple of months. I've rearranged my like morning workout playlist, and it's all these like anthems by For King and Country that are very energizing and encouraging, and one of them is called Wholehearted, and it's all about, like, how do you show up with your whole heart even when things are hard, and when things are heavy, how can you be lighthearted, and when things are cold, how can you be warm-hearted? And it's like, so I encourage everyone to check out that song, and maybe pray with it. But I think that might be a church ladies theme for Lent, is like, how can we practice Lent wholeheartedly? And that might look like something different from day to day, but it's about showing up, and it's about the attitude that you have, and it's about not trying to check things off a to-do list because you feel you have to, but it's about showing up for the relationship that Jesus wants with you.
Yeah. So this is a side note from a mom. So my daughter is just like my husband in the mornings, hates getting up out of bed. And she will always say, oh, I can't get out of bed. My legs hurt. And I'm like, no, you can. You're just choosing not to. And so when Vicky, when you said that, that's all I could think of, was like, no, I can. I just have to choose to do it and want to do it for myself and my relationship with God. So that was funny. Just a mom note. And I hope there are other moms that struggle with getting their kids out of bed in the mornings, because it's wonderful.
You. I see you. Okay. Okay, so I think we covered the first reading. Second reading in Corinthians, the ambassadors for Christ.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
My bad.
No, that's good. Vicky, what do you got on this one?
Yeah. So that stuck out to me when you were saying that about the ambassadors for Christ, right? Like, that's what we're called to be every day. But the other part of the reading I loved was the idea that working together, then we appeal to you not to receive the grace of God in vain. Like, the idea that we have to work together, right? So we're on this journey, and it's individual in what we're doing, but we're in it together also. So it's a collective. And I think, especially looking at the readings to come, that reminder that community is part of what helps us get through those hard times. And when we're in the desert, that is, reaching out to someone and reaching up to someone to help us is so key. And it's right here as we're getting ready to start this journey on Ash Wednesday for us.
We're in it together. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my word for this reading was reconciled. And it's God moment right here. So we are recording this a couple weeks out, just letting you know. So I was helping Deacon Eric with RCIA, and we were talking about the 7 sacraments, and reconciliation got brought up. And it was funny on like reading the room of people who have been to reconciliation. Like I'm like, yeah, I had a bad experience, but now it's like refreshing for me. And other people are like, oh, I go, but I still like get really nervous about it. And it was really fun just to see like gauging where everybody is. But you know, if you haven't, I mean, we all reconcile. We reconcile with ourselves, we reconcile with each other, but having that reconciliation with God, and it says in here, we implore you on behalf of Christ, be reconciled to God. And that's how we can be those ambassadors. If we have that strong commitment and strong faith and connection, then we automatically know where we need to go. If that's broken and not reconciled, then we're not going to be great ambassadors. And we're not going to be great role models because we're not showing exactly who we are supposed to be.
Yeah, and I would think that's connected too, Karen, to the idea of the quote Vicky shared, like working together, we appeal to you not to receive the grace of God in vain. Like how many times is God showering us with his graces, but we don't respond, right? Like God is always providing so many opportunities for us to love, and so many, just so many comforts and consolations and graces to us, day in and day out. But a lot of times we just miss it. We don't, or we let it kind of happen and we notice it maybe, but we don't let it change us or change our behavior or change our actions or change how we're showing up for community.
Or we feel unworthy, like we're not
Yeah.
worthy of that love or grace from God, which I struggle with. But overall, I mean, how amazing. God loves us no matter what. That's the coolest thing.
Yeah, and you just never know how God is going to show up in community either. Like I was just to share a story that happened recently. We had, so Karen and I worked together to run the confirmation program at our parishes, and one of our small group leaders recently had to step down because she just had too many personal commitments going on. So I've been looking for a replacement for a couple of months, and last weekend I had the opportunity to go on a retreat by myself for myself. And on the retreat was a parishioner who I had not met before. And she's recently retired. Anyway, I get home the day after the retreat and she emails me and she goes, I really feel called to help out with the youth ministry. What have you got for me? And I was like, well, I happen to have this opening in our confirmation class. And she was like, I am so excited to do that. Right. Like, so just like those moments where God is active in community and there are opportunities that come up and graces that are happening. I mean, how many stories like this do you guys have where like, like the grace of God wasn't given in vain. It was given in a way that like fulfilled a need that someone had at that very moment from someone who maybe wouldn't have otherwise thought of it themselves. I don't know. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think the hardest part in that, and maybe Lent gives us that opportunity, is to be slowed down or present enough to actually see that. Because how much in life do we just, or I know I do, I'm like running at a speed so quickly that it isn't until I stop a little bit to really be like, wow, what an amazing grace I was given in this situation. But when you're in the middle of it, sometimes you don't see it. And that's also where community can come in handy to help you see where God is moving in your life, even when you're not in a place to see it yourself.
And that's the call of Lent too, right? I mean, I think that's really the point of the gospel reading. Nice segue, Vicky. Go into your inner room when you pray. like stop what you're doing and go someplace else where you can be alone with God, right? So that all these graces can emerge and that they won't be given in vain. That's how we show up to respond to them. What else do you guys want to say about Ash Wednesday? Any of the readings? Lent in general?
Well, we were talking about, the first readings, was kind of contradictory and celebrating. And then in here it says, go into your inner room, be quiet, don't be loud, boisterous. And I was reflecting on it and reading some stuff, and it was saying that we are so deeply social creatures, like we need that community, but in our times now, how much greater that is. Like everyone's posting, hey, look what I did, look what I donated, look what I made, look at my food I made, or whatever. And there's so much going on that we're just constantly telling people, look how great I am. And I don't know if you guys have or know people that do this, but I have some people in my small group or area, community, whatever. Like if something happened to me, they wouldn't call me directly. They would like put it out on my Facebook page. Oh, thinking about you. And I'm like, why couldn't you do you need everyone to know that you're thinking about me? Can't you just call me? And so that's what I was thinking about in this gospel, is like, we're being invited to deepen our relationship individually with Christ and with God. And, having that, one of the quotes was, nothing we do goes unseen, even if we feel that way in our daily lives. So I'm just thinking about like all the little things we do, or even with my kids, I'm like, do I get a thank you? It just seems like you're so unappreciative, like people are unappreciative of you, but God's not. God is with us all the time and is boosting us up. And so like I just connected those. I know that's a jumbling mental jumble, but like we don't need to post. Maybe if you want to do like a prayer, almsgiving, or give something up, don't tell everybody. Sometimes we're like, oh, I'm telling people because then I can have somebody who makes sure that I stay on it. It's not the reason for Lent. The reason for Lent is to do it to get a closer relationship. And so maybe keep it to yourself. And if you fail, then you can work that out with yourself and with God.
Love the idea that you shared that like God sees and God cares. It matters. Like nothing is wasted. No act of love is wasted.
Yeah.
And I think especially for parents that is heartening to hear, because, oh man, I mean, how many days do you just try to get through the day without being like,
and wives too,
for saying good morning the wrong way? I'm not saying that has happened in my house, but whatever. Yeah, and ministry too. Like you show up, you provide these and sometimes it can feel like you're pouring love into a void, and you don't always get to see the fruits right away. Like a lot of times they take a long time to grow. So I think that is an encouraging word from today's gospel reading, that your Father sees what is done in secret. Yeah, it matters. It's seen.
And I think too, as wives, as just people in relationship, it happens like in so many different ways. And one of the graces recently is my husband's needed me to do a lot for him, and it's been a stressful time for us. And the other night he just said, you know what? I don't know how I would have gotten through this without you. And it was just that moment of being like, oh, he saw these crazy little things that I was doing. And sometimes we get that, but sometimes we don't also. And just because someone doesn't verbalize it for us, or however we like to receive our affirmation from people or from others, that God still sees all of that. So it's never, doing good is never wasted ever, even if we're not seeing the fruit of it right away. Because if there's another theme of Lent, it's the idea that things break down before new things come. So, right?
Okay, we're going to end on that. No.
So sometimes,
Vicky will be back next week.
Yeah, well, we will, because like I said, get your floaties on, because week one, we're going deep quickly into Lent.
Well, I mean, and it just goes to show, like, are we doing those things because we need the affirmation from others? Like, obviously, I'm going to feed my family, you know, but it would be nice if they just appreciated everything that I did, but I'm still going to do it, you know? And I think that that's where, and how human is that? How human of a need is that to feel that understanding and that appreciation for things. But going back to that, if we're really focused, we don't need appreciation from anybody else because we're always getting it from God. So
yeah. Preach, sister. Yep. All right, you guys. That was a lot for Ash Wednesday.
So come and get your heart ashes.
Yeah.
Come and get your heart ashes. If you're watching it or listening to this before 5 o'clock on Ash Wednesday, head on over to St. Catherine's for the soup supper at 5:30 and then Mass at 7.
And you don't need to bring any, I mean, you can sign up to bring soup or bring soup, but we just want your company. So don't feel like you need to bring something to participate.
And then you'll help reassure Father Rob that people are going to notice Ash Wednesday, even though it's also Valentine's Day.
Yeah.
There's no better way to spend Valentine's Day than at church.
And we may even give out candy for you to eat on Thursday. So who knows?
Hearts, a whole heart.
Listen, candy is cheaper the day after anyway. So just go to the store the day after. Load yourself up for
getting a dozen roses on Thursday.
Okay, everybody. Well, we wish you the very best as you head into Lent and think about how God might be calling you to show up wholeheartedly, one day at a time. And we look forward to spending the rest of this season with you. So we'll catch you in a few days for our Lent week 1 thoughts. All right, everyone. Have a great couple of days.
On behalf of Anne, Karen, and myself, thank you again for listening to this episode of Faith Conversations for Your Real Life. Please make sure to subscribe to wherever you're listening or watching this episode. You can find the readings linked in the description box below, and we can't wait to see you again next time on Faith Conversations for Your Real Life with your favorite not so typical church ladies.